Well, that just took like 5 years off my life. I have been waiting so long for this book. I have some thoughts to share. Today is finally the day where I'm going to go and buy Iron Flame, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. Y'all, I am so excited about this book, but I'm also super proud of myself because I somehow wasn't spoiled. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Fourth Wing series, it's kind of this romance fantasy series that blew up all over TikTok. I read the first book back in September or October, so I was late to the bandwagon on that one as well. And then I just didn't have the opportunity to go and pick up the sequel yet. But in today's video, we're going to remedy that. I'm super duper proud of myself because throughout this like 2-month period when Iron Flame has been out and I haven't read it yet, I was not spoiled at all. I didn't even decrease my time on the internet, so that's like quite the accomplishment. To keep the non-spoiler vibes going, this video will also be non-spoiler. It's just gonna be kind of my reactions to Iron Flame and cozy reading vibes. It's time to go to the bookstore. Does anyone else get like way too excited whenever it's time to go buy new books? Okay, I'm about to drive to Books A Million, but I'm so nervous because like, what if the bookstore doesn't have it? When I first got Fourth Wing, I had to go to 3 different bookstores to find it, but I was in a big city so I could walk between them. Now I'm in the suburbs in the middle of nowhere. The closest bookstore after Books A Million is a 45-minute drive away at Barnes & Noble's. The nerves. Let's go to Books A Million. Hopefully we're not driving 45 minutes to Barnes & Noble's. We're in this together, guys. We got this. We finally have our hands on Iron Flame. I have been waiting so long for this book. I was talking to the bookseller about Iron Flame when I was checking out, and she got really excited and she said that she really loved that book. I said, oh, like I'm super excited to read it, but I've heard some mixed reviews, which is true. I've heard some people really like it. Other people say it's a little bit slow or not as good as Fourth Wing. She told me that she believed it was as good as Fourth Wing, but it tore her heart out even more. And like, the ending of Fourth Wing ruined me, and if this book is even more painful, we're in for a wild ride. Side note, if you work at a bookstore, you're one of my favorite people because conversations when you buy a book at checkout with the bookseller are just the best conversations in the entire world. I also couldn't just get one book. If you're the type of person who can go into a bookstore and just get one book, let me know what your superpower is because I've never been able to master that. At Books A Million specifically, the discount section gets me because I think Books A Million has the best discount section. And I found in the discount section a book I've really been wanting to read that is a 5-star prediction for me. And that is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I think 2 years ago I read the Cruel Prince series and I was absolutely obsessed with it. I love how she does enemies to lovers romances, and I think this is another enemies to lovers romance. If you've read it and it's not, please let me know. But I'm pretty sure it's an enemies to lovers romance, and so I'm super excited to read that one too, but not right now because it's time to read Iron Flame. Okay, so I always want to kind of just like examine hardbacks before I start reading, like looking at the maps. Sadly, Iron Flame doesn't have any sort of like art on the naked book, just this one little dragon there. The one thing about this book already that has really caught my attention is the trigger warning, so I'm going to read it for you all. Iron Flame is a non-stop thrilling adventure fantasy set in the brutal and competitive world of a military college for dragon riders, which includes elements regarding war, psychological and physical torture, imprisonment, intense violence, brutal injuries, perilous situations, blood, dismemberment, burning, murder, death, animal death, graphic language, loss of family, grief, and sexual activities that are shown on the page. Readers who are sensitive to these elements, please take note and prepare to join the revolution. That last line, but honestly, that entire trigger warning, if that doesn't make you want to read this book, are you actually a fantasy reader? I'm not really that far into the book, so I'll come back tomorrow with like a more substantive update on how Iron Flame is going. I'm really enjoying the beginning. I love the writing style again. In general, the Fourth Wing series, the writing style reminds me a bit of like Jennifer L. Armentrout. I know it's compared a lot to Sarah J. Maas, but something about it just really gives me Jennifer L. Armentrout vibes. So if you like those sorts of books, I think you would also really enjoy the Fourth Wing series if you haven't started it yet. I will say Fourth Wing is currently tied for my #1 favorite book of the year with Divine Rivals, and December is the month of truth because I'm reading Iron Flame. It technically came out last month, but it's a sequel to Fourth Wing, and then also the sequel to Divine Rivals is coming out December 26th. So I'm going to read that book at the end of this month, and then we'll know which is the true favorite series of 2023. Series can really make or break books, especially the second book in the series. How a series goes really impacts my decision of the first book a lot, and the second book is almost always my least favorite. So I think reading Divine Rivals book 2 and reading Iron Flame is going to tell me a lot about my overall opinion of both of these worlds. I just finished my new evening routine. I've never actually had an evening routine before, but recently I've created one that I absolutely adore. It kind of also is my reading routine. I'm going to create an entire video outlining it, so definitely stay tuned. The gist of it is that I do 15 minutes practicing my Spanish, 15 minutes reading, and then a 15-minute walk or yoga. It's like all my hobbies in like one super fun hour, and it's a great way to unwind after the day. The book, I am not that far into the book, but I'm going to read some more because I absolutely am adoring this book. At least the first couple of chapters have really caught my attention. The one thing that is really interesting about it is, at least in my opinion, the first couple of chapters are reading almost like a dystopian versus a fantasy book. I think it's that whole like prepare to join the revolution vibes of it is really bringing me back to the days when I used to read like Divergent and The Darkest Minds, if that makes sense. Good morning. Oh, there is no better feeling than waking up early in order to read your book. I don't know what it is, but when I'm reading a good book, like the excitement of getting up and knowing I have a little bit of time before work to read is fantastic. I also brought my book. I had to go to the DMV this morning and I brought my book. And here's a pro tip for you. Always bring a book at places that have long lines. If you bring a book, there will be no line. If you don't bring a book, there's going to be the longest line ever. Hi guys, so I thought I would give a little bit of an update. I'm now further into the book, so I feel like I can give a more accurate update to my reading. So the first like 200 pages or so were amazing. I absolutely love them, and I'm still loving certain elements of the book, like the dragons, for example. I never actually thought I would like a dragon book, but the Fourth Wing series has made me really appreciate kind of that bond between like the dragon and the rider. It's really opened me up to this area of fantasy that I've never been interested in before, and for that I am so grateful. And I feel like just when I was saying that, you had to have known a but was coming. I don't know what it is about like past the 200-page mark or so, but the story is starting to get a little bit messy, particularly around romance and a new character that was introduced who I just feel like her actions don't really fully make sense to me. Maybe they do to other people. If you want to talk about this in a spoiler way, like DM me on Instagram about this. I cannot with this new character. I really dislike her, and I'm not sure that we're supposed to like her, but I also just feel like the way it's written is very unrealistic. And then the romance between the two main characters is starting to not fully make sense to me, and I feel like they're going back and forth about the same arguments a lot, which isn't necessarily my favorite thing in a fantasy book, if that makes sense. But besides the romance, I'm really enjoying the plot so far. I'm going to film myself a little bit as I like finish up reading this, especially my reaction to the end. The bookseller warned me that this was going to ruin me, and defeated, crushed reading makes for really great booktube content. So let's finish out Iron Flame together. What I think just happened could not have happened. There's still an epilogue, and I really hope the epilogue provides some answers because I just can't with this book. Oh my god. Welp, that just took like 5 years off my life. That ending was insane. I'll be back like maybe tomorrow once I've had time to process this. I have some thoughts to share. Overall, this was a really fun reading experience. If you haven't read it yet, I might recommend reading it closer to the release of book 3. I don't even know, when does book 3 come out? Good. There's not even a release date on Goodreads, so yeah, if you haven't read this book yet, maybe really wait until closer to book 3 or plan to do a reread closer to book 3 because it ends on quite a cliffhanger. I feel like I might not forget the cliffhanger when book 3 comes out, but I think I will forget like some of the other details in the book. As you can see, this is quite a thick book. She's thick, she's good. I really highly recommend. However, I think I actually preferred Fourth Wing to Iron Flame, if that makes sense. Some of the plot points in here, particularly related to the romance, really just aggravated me. I really like the male love interest, and I really like the main character, but I'm not sure how I feel about them like as a couple, if that makes sense. I think I would be really good friends with either of them. They seem like really chill people. I don't know how I feel, and I can't even like fully voice what was wrong, but the romance is just not fully romancing for me in this book, if that makes sense, especially not in the same way that it did in the first book. Book 2 in almost every series I read is my least favorite book, so that's not necessarily to say that the romance is bad overall or that I won't enjoy it in book 3, or if I went back and reread book 1 that I would like it. It's just kind of like a criticism of this particular book in the series. Other than that, the plot was insane. It was definitely a high stress plot, but like in the best way possible. I'm actually so shocked by how much the stakes are raised in book 2. I think this is going to be a 4-book series, but in general, I feel like this is kind of like book 3 or book 4 stakes. So it'll be really interesting to see where Rebecca takes this in the next book. It went from like 0 in Fourth Wing to 100 in Iron Flame, if that makes sense. It was just so intense. And I mean, obviously Fourth Wing wasn't a 0. We still had like characters dying and violent scenes and war and battles in book 1 too. But I don't know why, just compared to this book, book 1 seems so low stakes. Now, if you guys don't remember, I said Fourth Wing is currently in competition with Divine Rivals for my favorite book of the year, and the winner of that competition will be announced in next week's video. I'm really excited about that video. It's like ranking my 2023 reads, so I might actually end up posting it over the weekend instead of next week. We'll see. Fair to say that you should definitely be on the lookout for my next video if you're curious about if I prefer Iron Flames or Divine Rivals, and perhaps which series you should read first, or if you should read these series at all. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I will see you with my top reads of 2023 in the next one.